Hi, I'm Sam Duncan, a business and technology writer at the Australian newspaper. And our panel today is brought to you by ASIAL, the Australian Security Industry Association Limited, which is a peak body for security professionals in Australia. And we're here today to talk about the ever-changing world of the security industry, what sort of challenges exist, what sort of opportunities there are, and different considerations around people and technology. Our panellists include experts from across the protective and electronic security fields. We have Tom Roche, former owner of SMP Security, which is the third largest security company in Australia, currently a business consultant and executive board member of Sapio, which is an Australian security company bringing innovative technology and human intelligence together to help secure businesses. We have Brian Decaires, who's the CEO of ASIAL, the peak body for security professionals. We have Roanne Monti, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Product Officer at Armortech Global, a tech company addressing critical security needs across defence, critical infrastructure and crime prevention. And we have Damien Manuel, adjunct professor at Deakin University and chairperson of the Australian Information Security Association. Let's dive into the discussion with our first topic, which is about building security capability and capacity and developing strategies for career pathways and workforce diversity. So Tom, what challenges and opportunities exist in building industry capability and capacity, particularly with regards to diversity in the workforce?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for the industry at the moment is finding good quality people, and once they find it, retaining those people. Since COVID-19, turnover of people within the security industry has been at record levels. So it's a big challenge for the industry at the moment in terms of finding quality people and retaining those people, and putting initiatives in place that want people to remain sticky with the business.
And in terms of pathways, Brian, any thoughts on developing career pathways and what can be done there?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for the industry is that it's perceived as a very male-dominated industry, which the numbers would pay testimony to that. There's less than 20% that are female working in the industry. But I think that's because the way that the industry partly sells itself, but it needs to be a bit more, probably more aggressive in trying to attract a broader spectrum of people, because you need a mixture of people in the workforce to respond to different threats. So I think we're starting to see greater female participation, but I think there needs to be more role models and more strategies in place to attract a greater female workforce in security.
What sort of strategies have been implemented that have been successful to date?
Well, some companies have actually made it a strength to actually employ a much higher proportion of female employees, and have been very successful. So they've put in place more proactive strategies to attract female staff, offering more flexible hours, offering a range of different roles. So, and actually just, I suppose, portraying the roles in a different way rather than just being a homogenous, this is what the industry is. It is far bigger than what the public perception is. And this, I think Damien can speak to this, but it cuts across not just the electronic and the protective security, it also gets into the cyber security space, where I think it's 17% female participation, which again, there's no reason why it should be that low.
I guess in terms of the different streams within the industry as well, can you talk a bit about where we see more female participation versus other streams, and how some of that translates to the imagery used to represent those?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to places like the airport, you'll see a much higher female participation rate, partly because you need more females to search female passengers, so you need a higher ratio. So I think where we've seen it is in office complexes. There's concierge type roles. I think in the technical sector, there are some females coming into the industry, but it's still not where it should be. So I think it's that sort of the old saying, you've got to see it to be it, and there's very few role models out there. There are some now appearing, but we need more of those, because then people actually can perceive that it's a career that they might be able to do. I was at a careers forum early in the year in Western Sydney, and it's interesting, there are females coming, and particularly the cyberspace. They're starting to ask, what opportunities there are in cyberspace. It's not just the boys anymore. The girls are coming along saying, well, maybe I could do that. So I think we need to do a bit more as an industry to make it more attractive.
And with Armortech Global, have you seen any proactive strategies to create a more diverse workforce?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we've always focused on diversity and inclusion. That's one of the key tenets of our kind of social responsibility. We see ourselves as a social impact technology company, so the social aspects and social issues come to the forefront for us. So in terms of strategy, obviously for us, it's engineers and making sure that it's a healthy ecosystem of an engineering team. So for us, it's a lot more engagement and making sure that there's a clear career path and a clear career progression for them. And that's what we've found works for us.
And Damien, in terms of cybersecurity, can you talk a little bit about why diversity is important?
Diversity is hugely important because the criminals don't think alike, and so you need a workforce that's diverse enough to think differently and to address problems in different ways. In cybersecurity, unfortunately, the participation rate of women is only about 17%. We need to drastically work out how we can increase that participation to get it at least to 50-50 sort of ratios. We do have a disconnect from universities in terms of the way universities are educating students. They're coming out of universities with degrees, diplomas, but they're not being picked up by industry because they're not necessarily fit for purpose. So there's a lag between what we're educating and how we get people to have actual hands-on experience at the same time.
Are there any scholarship programs or other initiatives that you're seeing that are proving effective?
There are scholarship programs, but there's nothing that gives the student hands-on experience. There are some programs here and there that will offer work placement programs, but they tend to be very small, and not all universities do that. And what we're finding is industry find it cheaper and easier to just poach somebody from another business, so they're a known quantity. Unfortunately, that drives the price up in terms of hiring. And then we have all these people completing university that end up just driving taxis because they can't get a job in the sector. So there's not a shortage of skilled people to come into the sector. It's more that the sector hasn't really been open to giving other people opportunities to come in.
And I guess the question, just for the panel, whoever wants to jump in terms of mentorship and networking opportunities, what sort of role can those two things play, and any thoughts around that?
Hugely important. So I'd say your networking and your ability to meet different people in the sector is the thing that's going to help you get the job. A lot of the time, organisations are looking for the right aptitude and attitude to hire an individual, not necessarily just the qualification that you bring to the table.
And Brian, any thoughts on that in terms of networking?
As an industry, you need to understand what the needs of the industry are, understand the industry. So you need to, I suppose, immerse yourself a little bit to understand what it is they're looking for. So I think the network's Tom has been involved in a few mentorship programs, and it is about connectivity and getting into the pathways that are not necessarily out in the public domain. It's and that's really that mentoring, networking that you've been involved in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And as Damien said, it's really important. It's vital to the industry. For an employee, it's about getting recognition from their employer that they've been selected for a program as well. Mm-hmm. So that means that that the company is taking time to develop the individual, invest in them, and then you're going to get that person being more loyal to the individual.
Any success stories you can talk to in terms of having mentored someone yourself?
Sure. Myself, I was mentoring two Singaporean workers through the company that acquired SNP Certis. One was based in Qatar and one was based in Singapore. And I think we both got a huge amount out of it in terms of working through their work issues and just sharing my experiences. There is a program called iLead, which has worked very successfully within the security industry and the broader industry. And that has aligned individuals from companies with the heads of security from businesses.
One other area to probably add on is mental diversity, or what they call neurodiversity. In cybersecurity, that's hugely important because you'll find that those individuals are able to identify attack patterns that other people just don't find or see.
Yes, so just to Damien's point, that is true. Okay, so point, in fact, most of my team have Asperger's. So, because, they're highly intelligent folks who build technology products. And in terms of cyber, it's having the ability outside of the norm to be able to look at patterns. That's not generally kind of identifiable to the average person. So having a kind of program within a company where it's open to neurodiversity is really critical.
And how does that translate to the recruitment program in terms of some of these people are not going to perform well in a traditional sense in some areas, but they might be exceptional in other areas. So how do you manage that?
Well, there's also obviously in the recruitment process, it becomes very difficult because we want to make sure that their privacy is respected. There are some candidates who don't want to identify as neurodivergent being part of the neurodiversity kind of program. So it's a very delicate kind of topical up and coming space right now. For us, it's critical, to Damien's point, because we need those types of talents. And to both Tom's and Brian's point, I think the more that we converge the cyber and the physical as one holistic whole, we will actually enrich an entire ecosystem of security professionals that will eventually have transferable skills. So if we had, say, a security officer who's only ever had exposure in the physical security space, upskill into some level of at least some cyber literacy, and if that person were to upskill even more, it will actually give the physical security industry better control in terms of regulation and better opportunities to offer people in terms of career progression, because those cyber and digital skills are transferable to, say, robotics or automation. And it won't be like, oh, well, it's a dead end if I become a security officer. What do I do next? If we offer those pathways where there's a clear career track or there's a clear career progression, I think it will attract more candidates and we will end up potentially with a healthier ecosystem.
I guess that leads nicely probably into our second topic as well, which is talking about these emerging technologies, which is changing the landscape and how interconnected some of these fields are.